Eating day to day was my biggest challenge. You know how tough that is on your mental health, food and exercise. Every day really feeling like Groundhog Day. Oh God, this again. I felt like I was always searching for answers, and I was on Google every night. When I also lost control with food and started gaining so much weight, it was like, oh, if I'm not the girl with the good body now, who am I? I was having this huge identity crisis.
This is Cassie Pleming. 10 years ago, she was kneeling by her bed, praying for a way out of an eating disorder. Today, she's one of fewer than 15 certified recovery coaches in Australia, running Revive Coaching to help people break the restrict and binge cycle for good.
I think that was me thinking, well, maybe I'll just move past it. You know, these food issues will just disappear. But as you can imagine, when you move, your problems actually do come with you. A common belief that people hold while they have an eating disorder is that I'll never be able to recover. I've done it. I'm not special. I felt exactly like you.
As a coach, what would you tell your client if she was going through something like that?
Hi guys, welcome to Expert Rookie. This is just a little disclaimer. Today we are talking about some sensitive topics surrounding eating disorders. So please be aware of that. And if this does trigger you, our guest, Cassie Pleming, would actually be a great resource to reach out to. So please feel free to hit her up. She will be able to help you and support you on your journey. Cassie!
Riley,
Welcome to the podcast
Thank
and
you so
welcome
much.
to the US.
I know. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here in Austin.
Aw, we're so excited to have you. So we met through Nick Comodina's program, but I wanted to intro you a little bit more because what you do is exceptional and incredible in every way. So you are a certified eating disorder recovery coach, which, if I'm being honest, I had never heard of before today. So can you tell me what exactly that is and what you do?
Yeah, sure. I would say even, everyone that books in a call with me from my website, when I ask them that question, have you ever heard about recovery coaching and what it is I actually do? Even though they have an eating disorder, they 9 out of 10 times have never even heard of it. And I guess that's because it is quite niche. It's actually much bigger over in America. So the certification that I did by Carolyn Costin, she's an American therapist, eating disorder therapist. It's all around the world. I would say there's, where I'm from in Australia, there's probably only less than 15 of us who have the certification. So it is very niche, but very much needed gap that needed to be filled in recovery support. So I kind of say that, because we're not medical professionals, we're not dietitians, we're not therapists, which all play a very important role in the recovery process. A recovery coach is really there to help hold the client's hand throughout all the behavior changes that they're trying to make and work on their mindset. And I almost see us like we are, a lot of the time in recovery, people will have the medical team around them. Like, let's say, for example, a dietitian who tells them essentially what to eat. However, because of the fears that come with and the resistance that comes with having an eating disorder, when they go to implement that plan, that's where they get stuck. And that's where a coach comes in, is to help them move through those fears, sometimes even eating the meals with the clients and facing their fear foods with them. And it's very goals focused. And we're really right there in the trenches with our clients throughout the week, whether it's through text support right there in the moment when they get stuck. It really fills that much needed gap that's there.
Absolutely. And just for any coach to have someone going through the trenches with you and to be there to support you, I think that makes the world of difference. I haven't done eating disorder recovery necessarily, but I have worked with so many mentors and coaches, and the ones that have always had the biggest impact on my life and the way when I was able to make the most change were because of the coaches who sat there with me in the mud and walked with me through it.
Yeah.
So that is incredible to hear that you do that. Before we get into your work, I want to touch on something a little bit different. You described yourself as a black sheep. What did that feel like growing up, and how do you think it's the thing that eventually saved you?
Yeah, good question. So I feel like around the time that I had an eating disorder myself, around age 18, 19, 20, I was doing the typical thing, which was to go out partying and kind of had no sense of direction with my life, like I think most 18-year-olds. Dropped out of school early because I just really had no interest. I didn't really know my path. And I found that by, a couple of years after partying, I just reached a point where I just one day decided I'm just not doing that anymore. And I moved across the world to London. I was working as a live-in nanny. And I guess that's what I mean when I say I'm a black sheep. I've always just felt like I've had this desire to travel and go on solo trips. Or, maybe I had people around me that were all working a very 9-to-5 job. And I always just had this thing in me where I felt like I wanted more or something different that was outside the box. And I'd always just naturally or kind of like intuitively like accidentally get on these paths where I would start a new business or this like, and it was always by accident. It was this random hobby that then people started paying me for. And so yeah, I guess that's what I mean when I say a black sheep. I've always just felt that I was on some different sort of path that often than people around me.
Was your family supportive of you moving away? Because that's a huge change, to say the least.
For sure. I think at the time, you know, when I had my eating disorder going on, I was
Mhm.
going through such a difficult time, you know, just a simple thing or something that should be simple eating day to day was my biggest challenge. And, you know, how tough that is on your mental health day to day to struggle with that and food and exercise and every day really feeling like Groundhog Day, like, oh God, this again, how am I going to get through this? And for me, you know, when I did make that move over to London at 21 on my own, not knowing anyone there, not really even knowing what I was going to do over there, I think that was me thinking, well, maybe I can just run from my problems. Like maybe if I have a change of scenery, or if I've got something going for me, like maybe I can just maybe I'll just move past it. You know, these food issues will just disappear. But as you can imagine, when you move, your problems actually do come with you.
Unfortunately.
Yes. Again, it kind of like it was never my intention of it becoming a career or something, but it was just one thing where I did it once or twice and then people start the word of mouth and then, you know, always these things that were just so outside of the box. And I was like, I find it very hard to confine myself to just staying in one lane and doing one job. I always just felt like even in my teens, I would, you know, work on the door at a club. And then when I finished that one, I would go work at the bar at another. And then during the week, I would have this other random job, you know, and I think all of those different jobs teach you so many different things and different skills that at the time feel really meaningless. But as you get up, you go, oh, that was actually like really good. That was really good for like rejection therapy, or that was really good for like sales experience, or that was really good for like public speaking. Um, so yeah, I feel like, you know, obviously now I'm doing something I'm so passionate about and I feel like I was put here to do and I'm like, nope, stay in this lane. But I think the cool thing about like having your own business is like there's so many little things that you can do within your business, whether it's like hosting an event, whether it's a group program, whether it's, you know what I mean? So it's like I can confine that creativity into just one topic.
And make it explode.
Yes.
I I love that you said you were a black sheep though, because it's such a negative term, or it's often used to be negative, like you're the black sheep of the family. And I would often call myself that because I never had like this straight and narrow path. You know, I went to entertainment and then to marketing, and then I was working in home building and sports. And it's like I couldn't really figure out where I was going, but like you know, my brother had this very clear path and he had this stability and just this was making a ton of money and like again just a clear very suitable path. And it was like, oh, I'm the black sheep of the family, but I think the black sheep is actually the most beautiful gift you have, and it allows you to be different from everyone else. And in being the black sheep, you get to be more creative and you follow your heart. And that's often what leads to success and happiness in life versus just going with the flow and doing what everyone else does. Would you say you were following your heart, your energy, just having fun? Like what took you on all of these different paths?
Okay, so it's a pretty crazy story. So I was working after I recovered from my eating disorder about 10 years ago. I was working in corporate, and at that time, it really gave me a sense of purpose. Now, looking back, if you asked me about that role, I'd say it was very soul destroying.
Fair enough.
Like it was, you know, outbound calling to people to try and convince them to stay with our company, and you would often get abused on the phone. So like looking back, I'm like terrible. I couldn't imagine like showing up and doing that for 8 hours, like 5 times a week. It's insane. But
Yeah.
at that point in time where I'd gone through this such a hard journey with my eating disorder, it was like it gave me a purpose, like a reason to get up 5 times a week and go to this place where I was sat with the same people. And what it really gave me is finally something I felt good at. And again, it didn't need to be. I think this is where people hear that word purpose and it's so overwhelming. People think, oh my God, I need to figure out what I want to do for the rest of my life. And it's like, no, sometimes, you know, it might not be the absolute your passion, your deep thing. Sometimes it is just a purpose. And I feel like within that role, it really taught me I remember winning the MVP award at that job, and which was this award. It wasn't based on your sales ability. It was based on the human that you are, how well rounded you are, what you bring to the workplace. And I feel like that was such a healing moment for me because it was like, wow, this is not praise or validation for the way that I look. This is not based on my ability, like how smart I am, or yeah, my sales ability in that role. It was purely, hey, you're a good person to be around at work, and we love the value that you bring, and you're just well-rounded, great human. So I feel like that was very healing for me, and also just like feeling like I actually was good at something after, leaving school, not having that direction. So at that point in time, that really did give me purpose. But then it sounds so cliche, but a couple years into that role, I had this little epiphany where I felt like, you know what, this has served its purpose, but I feel like I have more to give. Like I know I'm destined for more than sitting in this office and having the same conversation every single day. And so I remember I said to my partner at the time, like, I'm going to take an annual leave day. So I'm going to take the day off and I'm going to figure out my career, my life, my purpose. I was like, okay, sounds like a lot for one day, but okay. And I remember that day I was like, right. And I sat in front of the computer and I was on Google and I was thinking, gosh, like, what would I want to do? What would I even want to do? What career? And, of course I'd had that history of having eating disorder recovered a few years prior. And I'm typing in random things and I'm thinking, psychologist, like that's how I could help people with eating disorders, but I'd have to study for 9 years. I was like, oh, I got ADHD, so I'm not sure if that's, going to be an easy path for me. And I literally stumbled across, with a Google search, I stumbled across eating disorder recovery coaching. And I was in shock because I thought, as soon as I read that title, I thought, I know what that is, but I don't feel like I've ever stumbled across that before. And that was really shocking to me because when I was struggling with an eating disorder, I felt like I was always searching for answers. And I was on Google every night, how to stop binging, how to recover from an eating disorder. I never felt like, maybe I did come across it, but I never felt like I'd seen that before. And, it made so much sense because we have a coach for literally everything else. You want to learn to become a better swimmer, you go and hire a swim coach or you go to a swim class. Like there's literally a coach for everything. I thought this is one of like hardest journeys that anyone can go on, is trying to heal their relationship with food and get themselves out of that hard place. Of course. And I remember going on to Carolyn Costin, that's that American therapist. I went onto her website and it was a little bit dated, the website. It was a little bit ugly. Sorry, Carolyn. But I literally thought, I don't know if this is a legitimate website because I've never heard of this thing before. How do I not know? I should know about this, concept. So I was very skeptical but I was so interested and so intrigued. So I found someone in Australia that was doing it. And I reached out to her. I said, is this legit? Is this a real thing? Are you really doing this as your full-time job? And she said, yeah. And, I met her for a coffee. She reassured me. So I went on and did the study. A year later, she hires me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was like such like, that literally that defining day where I like figured it all out and that next path. And, if I hadn't stumbled across that and if I hadn't have gone for that coffee with that woman, like I never would have been in the position that I am now. But yeah, that was sort of what put me on this path.
I feel like you did something different than almost everyone. You actually took time to find your purpose and to sit with yourself. And most people are like, it'll just come to me, or like they don't want to take the time to dive into who they are as a person, what they love, what they're passionate about, and go after it. So that is really freaking cool that you did that. What made you stop and take the beat?
I think so. When I was in my absolute lowest point, I was living in London. I was a live-in nanny. I was living this double life. By day, I was putting on a smile, putting on a brave face, pretending everything's fine in front of these kids and the family and everything. But as soon as I clocked off and behind closed doors, I was suffering. Binge eating was the main thing that I suffered with, and the over-exercising. And so I really felt like I was just living this double life. And at my lowest point, I remember this like moment where like 10 plus years ago, and I still remember like the room that I was in. And I'm not a religious person at all. I believe in something, the universe, I like to call it. But I remember kneeling on the side of the bed, crying, and I started praying to God, which was so out of character because I I don't practice religion. I don't pray. And but I was so desperate in that moment. I remember praying to someone, anyone, universe, whoever was listening, and I said, if you please, 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 I'm so desperate. If you just help me recover, I promise I will help other people do it.
Um, mm.
And I don't know if I meant it at the time. I don't know if I was just trying to bargain with the universe.
No, that's fair. You're like, please, and then we'll be fine.
Bro, I was like, okay, I'll help one person, but I don't think I even believed in myself enough that I could actually go into that as a profession. So I think like that was always in the back of my mind. And I always had that in me that I was like, one day I know I need to do something with this. And I'm a big believer that, you know, God, universe, whatever, everything happens for a reason. And who, like, the universe gave me that situation because it knew I could get through it. And then I'd be able to help other people get through it too. So I think like once I reached that moment where in the corporate where I realized it just wasn't like lighting my soul up anymore, and it had served a purpose, but it wasn't my purpose and it's not where I wanted to stay 5-10 years. So I guess it was just coming back to the core of like, what do I feel like I could help people with? I feel like even from a young age, I sort of, if you ask me, I'd say I want to help people, but I don't know where that came from. So yeah, I think it always came back to that moment.
I was recently talking about my coach with this of like, I know my purpose is to help people, and I know it's through communication and connection, but I think sometimes we don't always know exactly what it is at that moment. We don't have the hammer to hit the nail on the head per se. But I truly believe that's why we walk through life, is because our experiences help to give us purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if you believe in this, but talking about how you had to go through multiple different jobs and going through all of these little accidental hobbies that turned into something. It was like multiple purposes to ultimately get you to the big purpose of what your life is for. Would you say that you believe in multiple purposes?
I do. Like sometimes I try not to think too far into the future about, will I be doing this forever? And what if I'm older and I can't connect with the young ones anymore, which I do so well at the moment, you know? And I just try not to think that far ahead, because the way I see it is like probably all of the things that I'm doing now in business and in coaching and in helping people are probably transferable into like a lot of different niches. But I think, you know, I really, I really tried to avoid doing the scary thing, which was going full time into my eating disorder business. And, you know, I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to show up on social media. I didn't want to do the hard thing. And I really tried to just push it to the side and just leave it as a passion project, like just keep it very small. But it was almost like the universe just kept like knocking on the door. You know, it was like people were finding me even though I wasn't posting on social media or I wasn't like talking about it. And it got to the point where it was like, this is too important. And there are people like, if this is growing organically in the background and I'm not even talking about it, imagine how many people don't even know about it. And so I think that's been something that's really helped me, is like when I feel scared about, say, showing up on social media or something like that, I tell myself there's a younger version of you who needed to see this video, you know? So yeah, I definitely think that, I don't know, like, you know, I feel like this is something I would do forever. I don't know in what capacity. I don't know if maybe it's my full-time business for a long time and then it's smaller, or what that sort of looks like. But it kind of just feels like the gift that I was put here to share, you know, whatever that looks like. And, you know, not to be morbid, but like sometimes I think about when I die one day and like at my funeral, they're not going to be standing up and saying, oh, she was really skinny and like she had abs and she was so disciplined with her food. Or, you know, that's not the stuff people are going to be saying. They're going to be like, she was compassionate. She was trying to help as many people as she could. She made such a big impact in all these women in particular, even men too, in their lives. And, you know, she devoted her life to helping people. Like that's the thing that I want people to say, you know? And I think about, you know, Carolyn Closton, the woman that trained us coaches. I think about the impact, you know, she very similar, had an eating disorder. She was very taboo back then when, you know, eating disorders, doctors didn't even really know what to do with it. And she went on to become a teacher and then a therapist, and then found one of the first eating disorder treatment centers. then realized there was a need for coaches and created that um, certification. And now, like, I think about when she passes and I think about this like ripple effect that she's had of like all these coaches around the world, then all going out and helping, having their ripple effect, you know?
Mhm.
So I know I'm obviously only a small fish in a big sea, but I think like even if I help 100, 1,000, you know, people, it's like I've just left some little mark on the world.
Speaking of doing things in the unconventional way and living a grand and adventurous life, you went to London at 21 and you took that solo trip, you said, to escape something. Talk to me more about what you were escaping and what you were trying to find when you were in London.
I think I was trying to escape my eating disorder for sure. I was trying to run from my day to day. I thought if I just change up my environment, everything will change. But like I said, your problems actually do come with you, even if it's across the other side of the world. And so I actually isolating yourself on the other side of the world without the community and without connection around, and also not being able to, you know, the time differences, not being able to connect with people at home as much, it only made things worse. And so, like, you hear me talk a lot in my content and to my clients about, like, I always say, we can talk all about, you know, the strategies and what to eat and how much and when and how to not binge. But at the end of the day, I truly believe if you don't have some sense of purpose, or you don't have some sense of connection in your life, you will probably still struggle with food and body. And that's what became very clear for me when I went over there, you know, because you are, say, when I'm binging, I wasn't even aware of why I was doing that. And there was many pieces to that puzzle that I wasn't aware of yet and was still trying to figure out. But I know part of it was definitely trying to numb myself and trying to fill up some sense of void with food.
I think it's really easy to think that moving will solve every problem. And I've done this multiple times in my life. Like I I hated Wisconsin, so I was just like, okay, I'm going to completely leave Wisconsin, change my life, go to New York. We'll go to college out there. That's where we'll make friends. That's where we'll be the person we've always wanted to be. And then that didn't happen. And so I was like, you know what? It wasn't New York. It's LA. Out in LA, I'll find all of that. And I'm just going to be this incredible, happy, confident person. Didn't find that. And then I didn't have the stability of a job. So I was like, you know what? It's the job. The job is the problem. I'm going to move to San Diego. And San Diego, I'll find stability in my job. I'll be the confident, awesome, happy person I've always wanted to be. And then I get to San Diego and I realize, wait, I have the job, but I'm still a broken person inside. So in that moment, I knew I had to make a change and I had to start looking at my life differently. When you got to London, what was the talk to me about the moment that changed everything, and then talk to me about what you did to start making those changes once there.
When I was over there, obviously I was quite isolated and I didn't have that sense of community. I didn't have connection. I thought, oh, it's really cool being over in London and being able to, you know, I did a little bit of travel and did some short trips and things. I made, you know, some friends, but I think it's very hard when you are struggling so much and you're internally and you're living that double life. And, you know, there were some very dark moments where I would, you know, clock off work and then I would go out on my own late at night and I'm searching for food, and it's not coming from a place of enjoyment or like genuinely desiring eating something yummy. It's coming from a place of like almost like you're on autopilot and something comes over you.
Mm.
And I always describe it to clients as like you have this angel and devil on your shoulders. There's a part of you that's saying we should really like go get a bunch of food and binge. That would be a really good idea.
Mm.
And the other part is like, we don't want to do that. Like the last time we did that, that made us feel terrible. Don't do that. And so I was constantly in these conflicting voices inside my head. And, you know, some dark moments where I got to the point where I would feel so sick and so ill from everything I'd eaten when I would binge that I would convince myself it's okay because we'll go vomit in, you know, down an alley, you know, randomly hiding out. And, you know, I think that was obviously a moment where I was like, this is not, I already knew things weren't good, but I was like, this is actually like really, really bad. This is really bad and dangerous. And so I searched for a therapist over there. I tried dabbling in a couple of therapists back at home, but obviously there's financial challenges with that. It's a big stretch. And also, I didn't really connect with any. I kind of felt misunderstood and I didn't feel connected to these therapists. So when I was lucky enough to connect with a therapist in London who had lived experience, and probably was like a bit of bias, but I felt like the moment that I connected with someone with lived experience, I kind of sat back in my chair a little bit. I was like, okay, I think I like this one. And I think, all right, I'll listen to what she has to say. And, you know, in therapy, of course, they get very into the past and more of the why behind your struggles. And I realized that I was sort of going through this big identity crisis because for the past few years, I'd been this party girl. I'd very much, had a lot of people praise me for the way that my body looked. And so I had no path, no direction. And so when people were praising me for something, I kind of felt this little like, oh, I'm actually good at something. I must be good at losing weight or changing my body. I should be better at that. Let me take that to an extreme. And that kind of got me into that mess. And so when I stopped partying and when I also lost control with food and started gaining so much weight, it was like, oh, if I'm not the girl with the good body now, who am I?
Mm.
And if I don't have the good body, well, I don't want to go out and I don't want to wear the outfits. And it's like I was having this huge identity crisis of like, I don't know who I am if I'm not that. And in a weird way, looking back now, I'm like going out and partying was giving me a sense of community. It was a place, the clubs, it was a place that we'd go every week. You would see the same people there, and I pulled myself away from that because I was struggling so bad that I couldn't even go out and enjoy that. So I think connecting with that therapist who, even her saying to me, you didn't have a normal childhood, right? And I was like, what?
Like, wait.
I was like, really? Or even like her like telling me that I had low self-worth. It was a surprise to me.
Mm.
I was not aware of that. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess. So it was definitely that path of doing the inner work and realizing, okay, I've got some stuff there that needs to be worked on and building that self-worth outside of just my appearance.
But sometimes it's not until you have those conversations of realizing where you're coming from and how your past has influenced you today that you see it clearly within yourself. And to your point of a therapist, I'm glad you didn't just go with the first one because that was a mistake I made. And I think it's a mistake that a lot of people make, being like, I'm not feeling good. I'm going to get a therapist. It's going to be a quick fix. It'll be fine. And then you go and you meet a therapist and they're not the right person for you.
Mhm.
Like mine literally told me that my biological clock was ticking. And if I didn't start dating someone now, I was never going to get married.
Wow.
I was like, okay, brother, don't agree with that. With all of that said, it's so important to make sure that you have a therapist who understands you on a deeper level and has that lived experience, like you were saying, to understand your thought process, where you're coming from, where you want to go, so that you can actually heal instead of just going through the motions of healing and then never actually recovering.
Yeah, I think there's something very powerful about the lived experience. I guess that's why you even see with alcoholics who are going through rehab, they'll always have that support person, the AA support person. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah, that support person. So I guess similar in that sense. And you're going to want to take advice and lean on the person who you feel can actually understand because they've walked the path too. So I definitely know that that's kind of my superpower with the people that I work with because they're sitting there in the chair in the meeting thinking, oh my God, everything I'm saying is so embarrassing and I'm so weird for all these ways I'm behaving with food. But I'm almost like predicting what they're going to say because it's so similar to my experience or to other clients that I've worked with. And I can almost finish their sentences and be like, wow, how do you know the way that I'm thinking? That's totally, what I think all the time. And there's something, very powerful in that, being people feeling really understood by that.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about your path to recovery and how you got to where you are now. Because I think a lot of people in our audience are probably feeling trapped, misunderstood, not heard by maybe themselves or even the current therapists they're working with. So, how did you overcome all of those terrible negative thoughts that kind of run your brain and the devil on your shoulder to be the incredible, wonderful person you are now, in the incredible place you are now, and doing what you do?
Good question. I feel like I was always looking for the answer. And I remember at one point being so desperate to find a solution that I was searching for a magic pill, trying to find online. There must be like a medication that I can take that will stop me from binge eating. And, it's crazy now, like 10 years later, there actually are certain peptides and weight loss medication that you can take to try and dull some of that food noise. And, just quickly on that, it's like, looking back now, I would have taken and done anything to quieten that food noise. But I'm so grateful now that I had to do it, the harder way of actually healing my relationship with myself and my food, because it's almost like just putting a little band-aid. If I was to have taken a medication or something, it would have just put a band-aid on the issue. And when we just put a band-aid on the wound, it's like it's still under there and it's not healing. And the moment that you take it off, the stuff's all going to come out. So I'm very grateful, even though it was years of going through the hard stuff, that I didn't just put a little band-aid on it and I actually worked through it, because it's truly made me have a better relationship with myself. And that like translates not just to food and body, but also how I show up at work and business and in friendships and the way that I speak to myself, which obviously affects how I feel day to day. So something that I had to work on and is really big in the coaching that I do is like when I talk about having the angel and the devil on your shoulders. The eating disorder is not the devil, by the way, but I just say that because it's an easy visual. But I really help clients to strengthen that healthy voice. So that part of them that knows right from wrong, the part of them, the best way to sort of think how that healthy voice would sound, or the way its mindset is the way you would talk to a friend. So it's like if a friend ate a cookie and said, "Oh God, I shouldn't have had that." How would you respond to that situation? Or if a friend
out. I'm eating the damn cookie.
or if a friend, was feeling a bit self-conscious in her outfit or something, would you like respond saying, yeah, like you really need to do something about that because you do look disgusting in that skirt today,
Yeah, well, one of the videos I literally just made was talking about the bully of our brain. Like, it's honestly worse than a high school bully sometimes. And what we need to meet is grace. And grace is the part of our brain, the person who loves and supports us and shows us compassion. But often we throw grace aside, sometimes like we do in real friendships, because the louder voice, the bully, is talking, and we start listening to that voice instead.
Yeah. That like inner critic has a very similar tone of voice to the eating disorder voice. I guess like if it's eating disorder voice, it's very related to like your food and your body. But it's interesting, once you strengthen that healthy self, it kind of puts the eating disorder out of a job and no longer shows up anymore, because that part of you is so strong. But one thing I noticed once the eating disorder voice was no longer around, there was this other mean, annoying voice that would sometimes pop up, and it might be, you make a mistake at work. And it's that voice that's like, oh God, just quit your job because your boss hates you and everyone's going to think you're so dumb. It was like, hang on, what is this voice? That sounds kind of, it's got a similar tone of voice to this other voice that I used to know. And so I feel like similar to that, it's being able to recognize that part of you and strengthen that other compassionate part that can keep that part of you in check.
What is the number one thing you teach your clients to help overcome that voice and help keep that voice in check?
A big thing, and like this probably sounds like a lot of work, but actually really getting clear on what is that dialogue going on for you. So a lot of people, let's say you feel anxious about something, you're feeling difficult feelings, you're feeling anxiety, you're feeling maybe guilt because you've just eaten something. It's always like going back and going, what were you actually telling yourself? What was the story that you were telling yourself before you had that feeling? Because every feeling, comes from a thought. So you've kind of got the event that happened, which was I ate a bunch of cookies. The thought, which is the story that you tell yourself. You can tell yourself, yum, they must have been delicious because I had 2 of them. Great, that was enjoyable. Or that would be like the healthy voice, but the eating disorder voice might say, I can't believe you had that. That's so many calories. Why did you do that? You're so undisciplined. Tomorrow we're going to have to go on a diet. And obviously from those thoughts or those stories that you're telling yourself, that would lead to guilt, shame, disgust, So, and then from there, that leads to what actions that we take.
Where do you think that voice comes from and that inner critic comes from?
So I think that inside all of us, we kind of have all these different parts. Even if you don't have an eating disorder, you probably have multiple parts going on. You might have like an athlete part, a compassionate part, whatever parts make up who you are, right? A perfectionist part. And I don't know if you've ever seen the show Inside Out, the movie.
You know it's based off of me, right?
Yes. So
Sorry.
if you can picture the panel, that's sort of the way I picture it inside my mind is we've all got this panel. And in that movie, they have the different emotions. And like you see in different situations that Riley goes through, those emotions show up and take control. So like if Riley is in a sad situation, the sadness character takes the control and says, like, I got this, cue the tears. And much like eating disorders, like that part of you, as much as when we're in it, we think, oh, this is horrible. I don't want to be doing that. This stupid eating disorder. I want to get rid of it. It's like you need to look at it like this part it actually is serving a purpose and has a role. And so, like, eating disorders being a coping mechanism, it's like when you are going through something difficult, like lacking purpose, feeling lonely, feeling disconnected to yourself and people, that eating disorder shows up. Like, imagine it grabbing the controller and being like, yeah, I'll help you cope. Like you're feeling this type of way, you're feeling bad, sad, guilty. Here, let's eat a bunch of food. Remember last time we did that and it made us feel good for a second?
Little dopamine hit.
Yes. So I think just remembering that like all these different parts of that inner sort of voice, it is serving a purpose and it has a role.
Do you think it's our brain trying to show us love, but in a really messed up way?
Well, one thing I always think about is like, even when your inner critic is showing up, like, let's say for me, it's like if I made a mistake, I'm working for an employer and I've made a mistake and I'm telling myself the story, I'm the worst person ever. I can't believe I did that. I'm so dumb. Boss is going to hate me. I should just quit. I'm going to get fired. Everyone's going to find out I'm an imposter. You know, this type of dialogue. I think that, wait, I forgot what the question was.
How did I phrase it? Do you think that it's coming basically like it's coming from a place of love?
Oh,
the
yes.
inner critic.
Yeah. I think that even when the inner critic does show up, like let's say, for example, you not intentionally, but you did something with a friend that maybe upset them. You know, it wasn't malicious. It was something, you know, you realize I messed up a little, whether it be a friendship or a relationship. That inner critic shows up and says, you messed up, dude. You're the worst friend ever. You know, I think we can take a grain of truth from it and say, okay, that part of me, it's good that I have a conscience. And that part of me is saying, hey, yeah, you messed up. But like next time, be more thoughtful. Don't do that thing. Think before you act, like that type of thing. But I think it's also about having, say, a compassionate part that can say, yeah, like, okay, you messed up, but that's okay. Like everyone messes up, you know, and it doesn't mean that, you know, you're the worst friend ever. It's just like, hey, put a little post-it note on that for next time of like, I don't want to make that person feel like that.
From what I've experienced, it's sometimes so hard to do that in those moments and to listen to that compassionate voice because your brain, or the bully rather, is so loud and it causes you to spiral. And it's like, even though you know this truth about compassion and that maybe we don't need to be so hard on ourselves, we don't want to listen to it. So what would you say to someone who might be going through a similar situation where the voice is just so loud and deafening that they can't hear the compassion?
As I said, we tend to like sit in our emotions, but I'm so anxious, I'm feeling so guilty, I feel so much shame. But it's like, okay, what story are you telling yourself that's making you feel like that? And I always compare it, you know, with like inner critic or the inner sort of voice. It's like, imagine sitting locked in a room like this and the person that you're with is just constantly saying nasty things to you. You know, how are you going to feel? You're not going to feel good.
No.
And so
Probably be crying.
and you're probably not going to want to be friends with this person.
Right.
So it's like, you know, think about the friend that would be sitting with you right now and making you feel better about this situation and comforting you. And it's like, start to tell yourself those stories. And with this, I think you've got to make sure that you're actually saying things that you do believe. And that's where like using fact can really help. So like, you know, let's say you mess up with something and, oh my God, I should quit my job because I'm the worst. It's like, actually, I got really good feedback from my boss last week at my thing. I don't really think that's true. And you know what? I have a really good relationship and I've built really good rapport with my boss. So actually, maybe I'm not the worst person ever. And like past history has said that they're probably going to be very forgiving of me making a small mistake.
Do you believe that your belief system affects how you interact with yourself, the world, and the people around you?
Yeah, I think, you know, tying it back to eating disorders, I think a common belief that people hold while they have an eating disorder is that I'll never be able to recover. Mine is just too bad. My behaviors are too ingrained. I've had this for too long. I'll never be able to overcome this. And so because we hold that belief, for example, I used to think my binge eating is just too bad. I'm doing it too frequently. It's too severe. I've been doing it for years now. How am I going to be able to overcome this? Yes, maybe I've seen a couple other people online who have been able to recover it, but I'm putting them up on a pedestal because I'm like, I just feel like my willpower is not strong enough. And so when you don't believe that you can stop binge eating, it's like, well, when you're in the midst of trying to surf the urge of being about to binge, you're thinking, well, what's the point? Because I'm not going to recover from this thing anyway, or I know I'm going to keep doing it anyway, so I may as well keep going. So it's almost like when you have a belief that you believe in so strongly, you keep finding ways to reconfirm it to yourself.
As a coach, what would you tell your client if she was going through something like that?
I think the biggest thing is like having that hope and exposing yourself to people who have done things or got to places where you want to be. So when you can have that evidence for your brain, so say for my clients where they think, oh, I don't think I'll be able to recover. I don't even know if that's possible for me. And I can sit there and say, yes, it is. Like, I've done it. I'm not special. I'm not on a pedestal. I felt exactly like you. I thought I needed more willpower. I just thought I was too far gone. And I was like, it wasn't the case. And now I feel like I have a completely different brain. So I think hanging on to that hope and also having that evidence for your brain to, because going back to the angel and the devil, it's like the devil side is saying, yours is just too bad, so don't even bother trying, But it's that healthy voice coming out and saying, someone else has done it, so why couldn't you do it too? And I think that optimism as well. And because if you don't think you can, then you're not going to try.
You said your former partner gave you some advice after your first coaching call that changed your life. What was that advice?
Yeah, so my first ever coaching call in this profession, I remember it was with a teenager and she was sat in the session like this. She didn't want to be there. Her mum had obviously sent her there to chat with me. And, I was all hyped up, excited to be there and coach her through this, my first client. And she probably was not in that stage of motivation and change where she was really even wanting and willing to be on that call with me. And so I don't know how I got through that session. I don't even remember what went on in that session, but I got to the end and I jumped off and I remember just bursting into tears. And I turned to my partner at the time and I said, I'm such a shit coach. Like, it was so bad. And instead of in that moment him saying, you're not a shit coach, I'm like, you're going to get better. He literally turned to me and said, of course you're a shit coach. You've never coached before. How are you going to be good at something you've never done?
Straight shooter.
Like, that's going to be the worst coaching session you've ever done. Of course. And in that moment, it was just like a little light bulb moment of like, yeah, like I can actually suck at it. And it kind of makes sense because yesterday I wasn't a coach and now I am. So I think that was a big aha moment for me of like, yeah, you suck and that's okay. It actually makes sense.
Well, we're all going to suck when we first start. And I think this goes back to what you were talking about with the whole trying thing. You have to try and fail at it anyways. And that is the only way you're going to improve and become the person you want to be in the role you want to be with the identity you want to be, right? So whether that's an eating disorder or a job or you want to travel the world, you can't do it without taking that first step and being shit at whatever you do.
I mean, I've been doing this for like 5 years now, first few years working for someone else and then gone out on my own and only really gone into it full time on my own in the last 3 months. But I feel like when you first get into a new profession, the first couple of years, you're very by the book. You're very like, okay, I think it's meant to look this way. And I think I'm going to structure my calls this way. And I think this is what I'm meant to be doing. But I feel like even in the last 1 to 2 years, I've really actually just started to figure out, okay, I actually trust my own intuition on how to guide. Yes, I have my philosophy and training that I still lean on, but it's like I trust my own intuition to know how to guide each client with trying to meet them with exactly with where they're at. And it's like I feel like it's finally clicked for me where I'm like, oh, I'm actually like helping people recover. I'm not just supporting them. I'm actually helping people like get to a point with me where they're like, I don't need to see you anymore. I'm in such a good place. I can't believe I've got here with my relationship with food.
Talk to me about the anti-bucket list.
So I wish I could remember where I stole this idea from. So I actually heard it on a podcast. And it was a guy who had arachnophobia, which I believe is the fear of leaving the house, right? So he basically wrote a bucket list kind of in reverse, like the opposite of a bucket list. So he wrote a list of all the things that he was scared or didn't want to do in this lifetime. And then he went out and actually ticked them off and did them. So I remember one of the examples he gave was he Well, for him, like even just leaving the house and sitting on a park bench across the road was huge.
Mm.
You know, a fear of needles. So he went and got like a blood test. Or it was also he just like really difficult things that you wouldn't want to do or you'd want to avoid. So, like, I believe during lockdown, he worked out what the distance was to climb Mount Everest. And he did that up and down his stairs in the house,
Damn.
obviously across
Mm.
several days.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I just love this idea. So on my anti-bucket list, there was running because I'd always been a gym girl, but hated the idea of running. So I thought that sounds horrible. We should sign up to a half marathon.
Get out.
One of my other ones was I'd never been able to like swim well. And it's always been like a little bit of a barrier if I've gone on holidays or something, you know, I've needed to wear the life jacket because I'm like, I'm actually not a great swimmer and I've always wanted to avoid it because I don't like feeling bad at something. That perfectionism was coming in. So it was, I signed up to adult swimming lessons, which was obviously very humbling and embarrassing. And the third one was public speaking, which I had a big, deep fear of, not feeling smart enough, the fear of being seen, all of that. So I went to a Toastmasters class.
Toastmasters?
Yes, it's like a public speaking class, really well known. I believe it's around the world. I don't know. But
Never
I went to one of those, but I also started just putting myself in situations, podcasts and things like that, where I could put myself in that fear. And it ended up being like, when I think about across the years when I felt my happiest, it was when I was doing these things that I didn't want to do.
Interesting.
So it was this crazy epiphany of like, I'm actually the happiest when I'm doing things that are hard and that I don't think I can do and that I think I'll suck at. And, you know, that was sort of my little side quest for that year, that anti-bucket list. But I think the next year, you know, I dropped off doing it and I did notice a difference in how I felt. And so now I've realized like, oh, I have to continuously put myself in situations like that. So for example, leading up to coming to Texas, I had heard that line dancing was a thing. And I'd always had this fear of going to a dance class because I'm very uncoordinated. So I thought, God, that sounds terrifying. I'm really so uncomfortable about the idea of being in a dance class and not being able to pick it up. And I went to a dance class. And the first session was a line dancing class, sorry. And the first session was, I felt terrible. My brain was doing algebra, trying to figure out these steps. And it was like, I was messing up. And I remember there was 4 dances. And the last one, I was like, my brain has hit a wall. I'm sitting down, sitting this one out. Like, I'm good. But by the 4th session, I was actually picking it up. And it's like, wow, how many things do we fear and avoid that just if we gave it a month of giving it a go, we could actually get like, look, I've got no rhythm, but like I learned the steps and I would not have thought that I would even be able to have the guts to go to that type of class if I had not put myself in that situation. So yeah, I guess that's something I've just learned about myself now is like, that truly like fulfills me and makes me happy.
Dude, first of all, dancing is so hard. So I'm so proud of you. I also did that with salsa dancing like 2 years ago. Was shit at it, especially being a tall person trying to move these long legs. Like, no.
No?
Girl, I have zero coordination on all fronts.
Yeah.
That's why I don't know why I could only play volleyball, but you put me in any other sport, like basketball, could not make the hoop. I would literally shoot it like into the bleachers.
Yeah.
All of that to say, I gave it 3 classes, and by the end of the 3rd class, I was picking it up and starting to get with it. But like you said, you kind of have to put yourself in that uncomfortable situation to learn and grow.
Sitting in the sock, it's like letting yourself be a beginner with something, letting yourself actually go, yeah, like I can't dance. It makes sense. I've never been to a dance class before.
Why do you think putting ourselves in those uncomfortable situations that seem like hell actually provides so much happiness?
Well, firstly, they're fun. Like who wouldn't want to go swimming, line dancing, running events, all these things you thought, oh, that just doesn't interest me. But really it's your perfectionism saying, you've never done that before and you're going to be really bad at it. And do you really want to sit with that? Uncomfortable.
I don't know though. When it comes to half marathon, like I believe I could do it, but it also sounds like complete hell running for 13.1 miles. And then when you think about a full marathon, 26 miles, like I have had a lot of friends who have done it and they come home dead and their muscles are sore and their toenails are falling off. And to like on the outside, it doesn't seem like happiness, but then afterwards, you know, I looked at my cousin who did it in January and she's like, I fucking did that. And she was so happy. So what do you think, just to go a little bit deeper on that, is it more than just getting over perfectionism? Because I feel like there's more to it. And especially as someone who I'm just like, I don't even fucking care about being perfect anymore. You're going to see me mess up. And I do it very publicly sometimes. What else is there to it that makes it so just undeniably a, I don't want to phrase this, undeniably, what is the word I'm looking for? A, undeniably a cause of happiness.
I think there's many parts to it. It's like, so say for example, the line dancing, I'm doing that once a week and it's at a community center, it's free. There is not a single person in there, probably under the age of 60. So it's so like, I'm standing out in that class. Like it's so me and my friend go and it's so out of character. And it gives you, going back to what we were talking about earlier, it gives me this sense of community in a weird way, or this sense of purpose. Like every Wednesday, my friend and I are meeting at the community center. We're going to do this dancing, this thing we've been working towards. It's that. And I think like when you are older, that's what keeps people happy and alive, right? Is having that sense of community and having this thing that they go and see the same people every week. Even if you're not best buddies with them, it's still that routine of feeling a part of something. So I think there's that aspect of like a community and like seeing the same faces every week, which we know actually makes us live longer. But then I think the other part of it is like facing something you never thought you could do and then actually going, I'm actually getting okay at this. All right, I might not be world champion, but I'm like, I didn't even think I could do this at all. And I'm actually kind of picking up and kind of getting better at, running's like an easy example of like, oh, I've run 2 kilometers. Wow, I didn't even know I could do that. Oh, now I've run 4. Oh my God, cool. What else can my body do? Wow, I've never run 6. And so, yeah, I think there's a sense of accomplishment in it. Of course, with all these things, you got to keep that perfectionism in check and not just keep going and keep going. But yeah, there's a real like sense of achievement and it feels almost more rewarding when you're doing something that you thought you could never do.
Mm-hmm. And you're building up that confidence within yourself to say, hey, I can do this and I can go do other incredible, amazing things. I love that.
I guess in terms of pillars, I more think of it as like your values. So I think like I'm really curious about what helps people to live longer. And it's not, I think we put so much focus into it's what you eat and it's what supplements you take and all of that, when actually when they've done the research, it's a lot to do with the community that they've had and that sense of purpose. And I think it's figuring out what your values are and what actually makes you happy. So, for example, for me, one of my values is growth. So, when I don't feel like I'm growing, when I'm not participating in personal development quests, when I'm not growing in some capacity, that's going to feel misaligned for me. Or, like I said, when I'm not doing hard things and putting myself outside of my comfort zone, that's where I feel very stagnant. I feel, what am I doing? What is even the meaning of life? And, whereas someone else might not align with those same values, something like even like travel. For some people, they're very happy to just never leave their hometown. I can't understand that or resonate with that. But like that's because we have different values. So I think as long as you're clear on what your values actually are and you're living in alignment with them, you are going to be most at peace and most happy. And let's say one of your values is, or let's say like your career gives you a lot of purpose and that gives you a lot of happiness. I think outside of that, connection, meaning, and purpose is like, and community, like that just, I think that's just like a universal human need that we all have. So I think if you've got that structure underneath, anything else that you could do is just a bonus that's going to help.
If someone doesn't have their community around them or is struggling to find one, what would you suggest they do so that they can go and meet other people, get out there and build that community that can help them feel their sense of purpose?
I think about what you would genuinely like to do. So like if you like going to dance classes, like go sign up to a dance class. If you love travel, go do some travel. If you love business, be a part of a business community. Like think about the hobbies that you love to do or things you've always thought I'd love to get into that. And then literally go join that. And that's the best place to meet like-minded people because it's like you're going to go there and have this common ground, exhibit A. And you're almost like, oh, wow, like we have so much in common. Oh my God, me too. And it's, yeah, I think that's the best place to go.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I mean, that's how we met. That's how we've met so many other like-minded individuals who are just incredible and passionate and excited to be on this journey of life. So I want to pivot a little bit. Uh, hold on. I said that and then I didn't have my question pulled up. I'm
Pivot to
dead.
where?
Literally. Okay. What is the biggest lie that the wellness industry tells us?
Probably that there is one perfect diet that is going to solve all your problems.
What diet is that? Because I feel like I've heard 20,000 diets. And I don't know if I told you this. I was a nutrition major in college and ended up minoring in it, but still have loved it for so long. And then when I was on my own body journey and figuring out how to eat right and stay healthy, I went through probably 15 different fad diets. You think of the Whole 30, you think of the ketogenic diet, and everyone for me only lasted a couple weeks because of course it's a fad diet.
Mm-hmm.
What is the number one diet that you think that industry is pushing that is just not true?
I think there's a bit of everything, and it just depends what side of the internet you're on. You know, if you're anti carbs, you'll find people that support that. If you're pro carbs, you'll find people that support that. And I think for me, what's helped me to have such a balanced relationship with food now is really just not following any particular diet. So, you know, of course, I've got my nutritional knowledge there that draw from day to day. I don't just go in blind to my meals, not caring about what I put into my body. And that's obviously getting back to the basics like eggs, meat, fish, vegetables, fruit, you know, all that good stuff that our body really needs. But I certainly don't cut anything out. Nothing is off limits. And I think that is what allows me to be balanced with food, to not put any certain food up on a pedestal, to not label foods as good and bad. And I think with every like a lot of the work that I do with my clients is they've tried all the diets. They're so conflicted on should I be having more of this or more of that, or should I cut this out? And it's like they've actually lost their natural intuitive ability to trust their own judgment of food. It's like I always give the example of babies. When we come into the world, we are the most intuitive eaters ever. We will just cry when we're hungry. We will push the bottle away when we're done and when we're full. We have no preconceived ideas around food rules, diets, anything like that. And so like we have that ability, but because of all these diets and these food rules that have come from diets, you can't have this, you need to cut this out. We've lost our trust with our body and our body has lost trust with us. So I think there's that saying like the best diet is the one that you can actually stick to. And like being realistic, like if you said to me, hey, for your diet, you're not going to be able to ever like have chocolate ever again. I don't want to do that. Yeah. I'm not saying I need to have it every day.
I will literally die first.
I'm not saying I need to have it every day, but it's just like, I just wouldn't even want to participate in that. That
Right.
sounds terrible, you know?
I feel like that's why Weight Watchers became so popular is because it did allow you to eat these things that other diets wouldn't, like the desserts and the pies and the sugar, but you were just tracking it better. And I personally am not a huge fan of Weight Watchers, but I do love the concept of eating everything in moderation. And that's even something I didn't do with healthy food because you think it's healthy, so you just eat more of it. And I would do that with yogurt. Like I would have probably 500 to 600 calories of yogurt each day. And I was like, why am I not losing weight? And it's like, well, you're not eating it in moderation. And the same obviously goes for candies and cookies and everything. But if you just eat a balanced diet more and learn what your body likes and how it processes different foods, it allows you, I think, to have a healthier relationship with food and your diet.
So I always say like too much of anything is not good. So really I just look at it as like, as long as you're giving your body what it needs and you're going with the intention of wanting to feel full and satisfied and feel good, then you can never really go wrong.
How would you define success?
I think growing up, you get sold this idea that success is having a lot of money, like particularly with business. It's like, it was how much money you can make. But what I've realized is that for me, success has been being able to get paid to do something that I genuinely enjoy, that lights me up, that gives me a sense of purpose, that almost at times brings me to tears because I'm so happy and fulfilled with like what I'm doing. That to me, and like waking up in the morning on your first alarm, not snoozing it, not dreading, oh God, I got to go into work today. Like that to me is success. Obviously, you've got to earn enough money to pay your bills. But like, I think even having that purpose, that which to me is just like having a reason to get up in the morning and something that is like lighting you up, I think that is success. I would consider that to be more successful than someone who works 60 hours a week doing a job that they hate just because they're earning double the money.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I mean, I don't have to say much because, I completely agree. That's why I'm not in a 9 to 5 anymore, because why am I waking up hating my life? I would rather be doing this every day. I would rather be working with people every day. And like you said, waking up on the first alarm because you're genuinely excited to go after the life that you want. For someone who maybe wants to do this, but doesn't necessarily have the confidence, maybe isn't in the right financial situation to go off on their own right now and build this dream life and the dream career, what would you say to them?
I think, well, I'd assume that that person is probably working like a 9 to 5. And so, in terms of like the necessity of paying their bills, that's kind of already covered. I think that there has to be a period of you working in your full time job that maybe you don't love and maybe it's taking up a lot of time. Also, investing time on the side to give something a go. And I think when you're in that position, it's like you've really got nothing to lose. Like, if you try something and it doesn't work, who cares? The worst case scenario is you're just back where you already are. And so it's like, try things, just give it a go, put that effort in. Yes, it's probably going to mean spending a bit of time studying or doing things on the weekend to start this thing and give it a proper go. But the alternative is that you just stay exactly where you are. So it's like, if the business burns down and doesn't go anywhere, it's like, well, you're just exactly where you were before anyway. And I think like people get so worried about, what if people see me trying and then I end up pivoting or, it doesn't work out. It's like, no one cares that much,
No, they're also not paying attention to you. People are inherently
especially
focused
if
on
you're small.
themselves. Yeah.
It's like people are like, oh my God, it's like you have 20 followers. No one cares. Don't be embarrassed. This is the best time to do embarrassing stuff on the internet and post on your socials when no one's watching. And I think as well, like one thing I've always been drawn to and love in other people is like if I see someone, I think people have this fear of like, oh, people from my hometown are like going to see me and they're going to think I'm cringe. And it's like, no, I love it. Like because I respect it so much, I'm just like, yes, like go for it. Like I love seeing it. Like I get so excited seeing their journey and seeing them get outside the comfort zone and give something a go. So I think the people whose opinions you actually care about, going to be they're not going to be thinking any type of way about what you're doing. If anything, they're going to love to see it. And I think people are really actually drawn to it because they're like, wow, that's so expansive seeing that. And I can't believe this girl's like chasing her dreams or doing something outside of the box.
hmm Even when I just started my journey now, the amount of people from my past life who have come out of the woodworks and been like, oh my God, this is so cool. I'm here for you. I'm cheering you on has been incredible. And the people who don't love me, leave. And that's okay. Leave. You're not meant to be on my page. I don't want anyone there who isn't supportive of not just me and the journey I'm on, but the people that are on my page, in my community, growing together. Because at the end of the day, this is about community, bringing people together and supporting each other. And if you're not going to do that, you don't need to be here. So,
And I think every like really successful person, if you actually look back, they've had either multiple attempts at businesses that have failed, or they have pivoted so many times. It's like a business coach turning into a relationship coach or a fitness coach changing into something else. And a lot of the skills that they've learned in those previous experiences have got them to where they are. And no one really questions, yeah, there's a little adjustment period of like, oh, I thought that person was doing that. Now they're doing this now. But it's like, no one cares. That's soon enough. Everyone adjusts. But yeah, I think I've noticed that about really successful people is they've always got this like hall of failures behind them that led them to that thing.
mm-hmm. And it only takes one thing working out to make it actually worth all of it. And it will happen, but you just have to keep going and keep trying and know that you will fail. And people are probably going to dislike you. They probably are going to talk shit about you. But at the end of the day, you know who you are. And the people who love you and support you are going to be the ones that come with you. And everyone else can just respectfully fuck off. For someone who doesn't have an eating disorder, but either knows someone, is friends with someone, maybe that person's in their family, and they are trying to genuinely connect with them on a deeper level, trying to understand their perspective, where they're coming from, trying to understand their mindset. How would you encourage that person to start a conversation?
It's a great question, and it's a tough one. I think there's a certain element to that person, that individual who's going through that, has to have a willingness to want to talk about it, or to firstly even see that it is a problem for themselves. So, of course, you can express if they've come to you and they've shared, like, I'm really struggling with this thing, or, you could bring that up with them. Hey, I noticed sometimes that, after we've gone out to dinner, you said that you feel really guilty, really bad. Like, what's that like for you? And have you spoken to anyone about that? And even like, hey, I actually saw this recovery coach that helps people with that. I wonder if you relate to that. Or, I think just being curious, not assuming anything, and giving them a safe space to actually open up maybe, and maybe they'll let you in and maybe they won't. But I think, I've had a lot of people even follow my account and say, I'm actually following because I know someone with an eating disorder who I want to support, and I want to know like the right language to use and best ways I can support them. But ultimately that person has to get to a point where they actually want the help too. So there's only so much that external help can do. In saying that, a lot of the time there can be a lot of fear for reaching out for help. So I've had situations where a client's sister or mum or whoever has kind of reached out on their behalf and then said, hey, I've spoken to this professional who helps people. She said that maybe like you guys could have a quick conversation to see if this is the right fit. And, it turns out being the best experience for them. And maybe they were overwhelmed or didn't know where to go to look for that help. And because of that loved one connecting, then that's helped them.
That's incredible. And what would you say is the best way to support someone who's on their eating disorder journey right now?
So one of the biggest things is not commenting on appearance. Like I think we have this habit of complimenting people's bodies or trying to reassure and be like, no, you look great. And the best approach is really to just not comment on food or body at all, because that person is already so hyper aware of what's going on with their food and body. And not everyone's journey, but for a lot of people, they may actually need to eat more on that journey than the people around them. And they're already very zoomed into what they're doing with food and feeling very strange and feeling insecure about what they're doing with food. Like, let's say someone who perhaps, does need to weight restore or does need to be more regular and adequate with their food again. There may be part of their journey where they're seeing people around them not eat multiple times a day, but they're needing to do it. And I think that's one of the hardest thing is they're feeling insecure about how much food they're eating. And yet in order to heal, they're going to have to eat a lot. And so like if there are situations where you're in a position where they're eating and you can eat with them, you don't need to make a big scene about it. You don't need to comment on anything, but even you just like displaying having a healthy relationship with food can be so healing for someone. And it can almost like give them that permission of like when you are fearing food and struggling with food, but your friend is like, oh yeah, I'll get a like large mocha frappe with the cream on top and the drizzle and how delicious is that? It's almost like, oh, okay, well, she's doing it. Like maybe that's okay. Maybe I could do that too. Maybe I don't need to get the almond latte that I don't even like. Maybe like I can actually join in on this moment and enjoy it too, because there's a lot of comparison and a lot of like, oh, I'm meant to be challenging myself and eating something more, but my friend just got the salad. So now I feel like I have to get the salad. So yeah, I think just being mindful of a lot of the time, even friends and family, they may be trying to help that person, but they to a certain extent have their own things with food. So for example, like maybe they're on a diet and it can feel a little bit contradictory where this person around them is trying to help them, where their eating disorder is very severe, but they're also on a diet. So I think like role modeling, being that healthy voice and having that healthy relationship with food can be the biggest thing that can help them.
Cassie, thank you so much for coming into the studio today. We love you. Where can we find you?
Revive.ed.coaching on Instagram, or you can just type in Revive Eating Disorder Coaching into Google. That's where a lot of people find me. And yeah, you can book in a free call.
Incredible. And what's one thing you are working on right now that you want us all to know about?
Right now, as I've gone full time into this, I'm putting all of my time and attention into my business. I'm just doing one on one. That's sort of my setup at the moment, working one on one with clients. So yeah, that would be the best way to work with me.
Thank you so much for joining Expert Rookie. We love you. And guys, go follow Cassie. She's incredible. That's a wrap.
Thank you for having me.